Live. Test 1, 2. Mic check 1, 2. Oh, I got the wrong graphic up. That's not the way to start the day. That is not the way to start the day. Good morning. How is everybody doing? What are we doing? Checking the live streams. Refresh. Back up. There we go. Okay. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. And my name is Keith, and I'm broadcasting live from Austin, Texas. I do this thing every Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., where I take a look at the job trends in tech, more specifically programming trends in on the web, and we talk about what's going on in tech. But the real goal, the sneaky goal, is really just to be a place to hang out when you're out there looking for jobs. I've had a number of friends laid off or under the threat of layoff in the last month, and a lot of people out there trying to hustle, trying to find their job, and I created this stream as just a place to be consistent, to hang out, to have a pal to just put on the background and listen to while you're getting out those job applications, right? This is the thing we can control, and that's getting up early, getting yourself a caffeinated beverage, and getting those apps out. That is the focus of this stream. And we also answer questions along the way. If you have a question about working in tech, about breaking into tech, about what the tech world is like today, what it was like 30 years ago when I started, I'm happy to address all those questions and or concerns. But failing that, we're just going to barrel ahead and take a look at the job numbers. So every morning, Monday through Sunday, I get up and that's not the right one. And I go to Indeed.com, and I have some searches that I have saved, and I check them out, and I record those numbers, and they make these graphs. These graphs give a picture. This set of graphs give a picture of entry-level job postings for JavaScript developers. Why that? Because my day job is managing a coding school. I help people learn to code, and some of those people break into the industry. And so that has been my focus for the last 4 years of my career, is really to help the next generation or the current generation upskill and become more valuable to employers. So jobs is part of that equation, and I keep an eye on them. For almost 3 years, I've been tracking these numbers, and the results are these three graphs here. I've got the job postings in the last week, in the last 6 months, and in the last year. And what you'll see is, man, it's been a tough week. All this tariff stuff, all the uncertainty that's in the world right now, in our corner of the world, the United States, leads to, financial instability, uncertainty, and with that means the stock market goes down, and companies' ability to access cash gets tighter, and as a result, there's a lot more talk in the last month about the AI bubble. Is it going to pop like the internet bubble did in 2000? And all that uncertainty leads companies to be tight with their hiring freezes, hiring layoffs, reduction in forces, all this is not great news if you're laid off recently or trying to break into the industry. Having said that, there are still numbers here, right? What this tells me is there are less job postings as there were a week ago, but there's still job postings. There's still jobs out there. Companies still need bodies to manage the stuff. You got more competition now than you have in a long time, but this is the world. This is the game we're playing right now, and we got to play it to the best of our abilities. If we look at the last 6 months, we'll see that there is a slight uptick there. We've got about as many than the margin of error probably of job postings coming out now as we did 6 months ago. But that was a flat late summer and going into the fall. It was, same kind of up and down pattern that we're seeing now. It was a little bit lower then. And, if we're not looking, if we want to be serious about looking at these numbers, I was expecting it to kind of turn around, and it dipped some more. So we're at a low for the year. Beyond the first week. The first week was nothing because that was the holiday. But, it's heading in the wrong direction. I want those numbers to be going up, and this uncertainty in the markets is not helping us. If we look at the last year, we'll see that it's a slight downturn overall, but the important number is if we look at the number of postings now as opposed to where they were 1 year ago today, they are considerably lower. They're at about half of what they were last year. Again, not great news, but this is these are the facts. This is the game we're playing, and all we can do is control what we can and get as aggressive as we possibly can, as committed as we can, as focused as we can, to do everything we can to market that product, which is ourselves, right? At the end of the day, you've been, especially if you're a programmer, doing deep work, learning your skills, learning the skills of your trade. But I have one friend who worked for 15 years for the same company and got laid off recently. He is rusty in terms of job interviews. He hasn't done it in a while. So, the game has completely changed in terms of how companies interview as it was the last time he was out looking for a job. So, he's got some learning to do. And that learning is not some new framework. That learning is not a new programming language. That learning is how to market himself in the modern world, right? So he's been getting his LinkedIn in shape. He's been, getting some help, getting his resume together. So lots of things you can do that you can control in how you present yourselves, and that should be your focus right now if you are in the job market. Learning how to sell yourself. That is the skills you need right now. You can go back to learning that new framework next week, but you got to get your presentation in order. The other thing I do is hang out a lot on LinkedIn. I've heard a lot of chatter lately about people complaining about LinkedIn because the feed is filled with more political stuff and more, non-business stuff. And while that's probably true, I don't see as much of that, probably because I am on it as much, using it for business, that the algorithm knows me and it doesn't put as much nonsense on there. I don't interact with the political stuff and that. So, but one of the reasons why I spend a little more time than usual on LinkedIn is because they have this little news feed here, and the news feed gives me some stories. There's at least 2 or 3 stories every day that are pertinent to what's going on in the tech industry. Again, when we look at these tariffs that have been implemented, and the talk about today's big announcement more tariffs. They don't necessarily directly affect the tech industry, but they certainly affect the wider industry. And guess what? Just about every company is a tech company on some level. They all use tech, even if they don't have a web team in house. They're using a lot of products and SaaS products, and if they have to cut their belt, cut their spend and tighten their belt, then it means that maybe they'll go and review all the SaaS products that they're paying for monthly and go like, do we really need this many seats? Do we really need this tool that we've been paying for? Do we use it enough? Maybe let's tighten up our on the purse and cancel some of these subscriptions that we're paying for, and then boom, that has its knock-on effects for us in the tech industry, right? So a lot of people, not even supporters of the administration, not a big fan of all these tariffs. Very concerned about what the long-term effects are of this. This is a thing that we don't have control of. We have to watch. We have to pay attention, but we can't move the needle here. So the administration's going to do what it's going to do. And the cards are going to fall where they may. The president is set to unveil his sweeping tariff agenda at the White House Rose Garden at 4 p.m. today. The announcement billed as Liberation Day is expected to involve country-based reciprocal tariffs that will go into effect immediately. The Trump administration aims to dramatically overhaul U.S. trading partnerships, arguing that the current trade accords put American businesses at a competitive disadvantage. The goal, the president says, is to spur companies to build manufacturing facilities in the U.S. Uncertainty over the potential impacts of the tariffs offensive has far-reaching effects, weighing on the stock market, battering consumer sentiment, prompting fears of a possible economic recession. The EU says it's poised to respond with reciprocal tariffs. Europe holds a lot of cards, from trade to technology to the size of our market. And automakers are bracing for 25% tariffs on all cars not made in the United States, a move that threatens to disrupt operations for GM, Ford, and Stellantis. Consumers are now rushing to make purchases before the levies kick in. Again, the looming threat of these has weighed on the stock market. There's an argument to be made that, like, instead of doing dribs and drabs of these tariffs, if you just blanket puts them all down and then walks away and say, I'm done with the tariffs, I'm not doing any more tariffs, then the market can at least go like, okay, it's not great, but we know what we know now, right? We don't have all the uncertainty of, is it going to be this country, is it going to be this sector that's going to be affected? Now we know, and now we can make our shift our business. The biggest problem that the business has had lately is because in the first couple of rounds of this, he would announce the thing, and then he'd get right up to the edge, and then he'd back up a little bit. And again, like, if you're a business, you just need certainty. You need the ability to forecast. How much inventory do we need? How much do we need to be purchasing? What are the factors that are going to change our pricing? If the administration's doing the hokey pokey and turning themselves about and constantly in and out, that's hard for people to forecast. It's hard to make purchase orders. It's hard to run a business in that kind of world. So, there's certainly an argument to be made that, like, if he, as draconian as these may end up being, and as they might raise prices over time, whether they're going to have the effect that the administration wants long term or not, again, uncertainty is what we need to get rid of right now. ChatGPT subscriptions skyrocket. Their monthly revenue is at least $415 million, growing over 30% in the past 3 months thanks to the surge in subscriptions. OpenAI's signature chatbot recently hit $20 million paid subscribers, proving that many are willing to pay for a chatbot that can code, write, give personalized health advice, medical diagnosis, and cook up detailed financial plans. If the AI startup maintains this rate, its annual revenue could reach its 2025 target of $12 billion, up from $4 billion last year. This isn't an April Fool's joke. Yeah. The biggest problem is that surge has led to, frankly, a worse product in terms of, man, this week, everything's been struggling. All these AI platforms that I've been using have been struggling. OpenAI's ChatGPT has been, I don't know if it's been down, but like my requests have been really slow. The code that I use, primarily using Claude, kept losing connection and I've had to sort of request things over and over, whereas a week ago I was not running that. So they just didn't, they don't have the infrastructure in place to meet the needs of this new demand for sure, and that's challenging because I'm using it primarily to write code, and when I'm writing code, it is and I need some help with something. I need it now. I've gotten used to the fact that it's been there now. I've avoided doing much in the way of running local models, but at a certain point, even the open source models will be good enough to do most programming tasks. And if there's not a compelling reason to not use a local model, like it'll make more sense just to pay an extra $1,000 for a better video card and use that model locally. And I see that day coming in the next year or so. And then what happens to all their subscription models? I don't know. Walmart ups China's price cut request. Walmart is not backing away from asking the Chinese suppliers to cut their prices to cover costs of the U.S. tariffs. The move by the mega retailer comes even after being summoned by government officials and demonstrates the lengths to which American businesses are going to have to offset added costs. The further concessions could result in a loss for Chinese vendors, meaning the cost of tariffs could be passed on to American consumers. Other big box retailers have already indicated shoppers should expect prices to climb. Walmart has always had the muscle to twist the arm of the primarily Chinese suppliers. We'll see. There's only so much blood in that turnip. The question is, does China offset their costs too in order to eat that? Because that's the thing that China can do, and that is it can use its financial might to subsidize their manufacturing. They've done it many times. In a lot of ways, they use that to grow their industrial base. But maybe they don't want to do that this time. Maybe they want the prices to go up. Maybe they want the current administration to suffer. Unknown, unclear. That's a four-dimensional chess that I don't play. What's going on in technology? This is really interesting. DeepMind is holding back the release of AI research to give Google an edge. And I was just talking about this with a friend a couple of weeks ago, and you know, there's been all this talk about like you can't put the genie back in the bottle, um, and in terms of AIs, it's out there, it's speeding at this crazy breakneck pace. There's all these huge advances coming, but again, part of the reason why these advances are coming is because they're coming from academics, and academics publish papers. And as soon as somebody comes out with a new idea, they publish a paper about it. Now everybody uses that and gets caught up. And it's this, speeding up acceleration of the technology. Well, to slow it down, all we have to do is stop sharing research. And, go back to 1980s corporate America where, hey, all of my secrets are my secrets. They're my trade secrets. I'm not going to share this. Okay? We shifted that model in the internet because the internet was, largely based out of academia, and that helped the tool grow. But the reality is, when these companies are getting billions of dollars of investment and they want to make that money back, they need to differentiate their product. And the way to differentiate your product is to, not give away all your secrets so that everybody else can, take what you've developed and put into place. So I was just saying this a couple of weeks ago that you want to put the brakes on this thing. And again, China is benefiting from that too. China is, taking all the we saw with DeepSeek was, they read all our papers and they found ways to improve on the incremental improvement to make it cheaper and faster. Companies don't have to give that stuff away. They can just say, this is my Pepsi, this is my Coke formula, and you like Coke? Come over here. Live and die on that. Then the true innovation wins. So I don't know. I think it's time for these companies to be stingy with their data again. It'll slow down what's happening, and give us time to catch up and try and figure out how we get ahead of this thing, so we don't just run barreling at 100 miles an hour into a wall. So I'm all for this. Big fan of this. Are we taking AI seriously enough? Will AI make us dumber and asocial? Let's brainstorm together. Well, it may make us more social, but social with AI, not necessarily social with other people. Is AI a tool or a threat? These are the questions. Again, the social media revolution happened so fast that we did not have a sense of the knock-on effects, the long-term second-order effects that would happen. This is happening even faster. This is happening even faster. You had to spend hundreds of dollars to get a smartphone in the day, and not everybody could afford that. So, but most of these models have a free version, and the ones that charge they're charging $20 a month. Like everybody can afford that, and as a result, it's happening so quickly. Another shock is coming for American jobs. New AI-related workforce trend is coming. The great recalibration. Why hasn't AI taken your job yet? Yeah. Again, I don't know. It's not going to take your job. What's going to take is the college student's job who's coming out. It's taking away that entry-level on-ramp. That's the challenging part. I have not looked at any of this new runway AI stuff. I saw the headlines of the videos yesterday. but I was heads down working on stuff, and I didn't have a chance to look at it. But I got one project, one of those dream projects I've been thinking about for years. That at a certain point, these video models are going to be able to produce for me, and I want to start playing around with that. Maybe later in the year, after my birthday. What have we got? What do we got? Okay, we're getting down to the end of it. A couple more stories. Interesting. Longtime writing community NaNoWriMo shuts down after AI drama. NaNoWriMo is shutting down. I participated in NaNoWriMo in 2015, 2016, maybe. If you're not familiar with NaNoWriMo, um, uh, National Novel Writers Month um, is is been a long term project where people write. The goal is to write a novel, 50,000 words in a month. So you do the math on that. You're writing thousands of words a day, with the goal of like, can you finish a first draft essentially in 30 days? I never finished a draft. My brother did it for, I don't know, 10, 12 years or something. He never finished a novel in that time. We're, both technical professionals who had full-time jobs that were pretty all-encompassing. I think the most I wrote was like 17,000 words in a month, which is a lot, right? But did not finish the novel. It's interesting. I have not been following this controversial AI stance. I'm curious to read about that. But, this is the world we live in, right? Art is being AI generated. Text art, image art, video art, sound art. That's not going away. It doesn't mean that we can't, we can't join in, the party in any level that we want. If you want to say, like, I'm not using AI at all for any of my art, great. If you want to say, I'm going to, build tools to help people be creative with AI and generate art, that's fine too. Like, there's going to be all different manner of possibilities along that spectrum. But yeah, original art creation's not going away. Since the, dawn of cavemen, there's been the urge to be creative and represent the world in some way using art. That's not going away. There's arguments that, like, if we have less work to do, we'll have more time to do art. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Okay, we're down to the end of it. 8:30 it is. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you got some job applications out. If not finished, keep on pushing ahead. We will be back here in 23 hours and 30 minutes. Again, my name is Keith. I've been a professional developer for the last 35 years. And I stream Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. with the goal of being a hang for people who are getting their job applications out. Primarily, it's in tech. Primarily, it's in programming space, but not completely. As you heard in the articles I talked about, I talked about the greater business world and how it might affect you. And really, again, it's just something to put on in the background while you're getting those job applications out, right? Some appointment that you put in your calendar. I got to get up at 8 o'clock tomorrow. I'm gonna hang out with Keith, and we're gonna get some job applications out. Want some of that consistency in my life, and that's the problem I'm here to solve. So if you If you want to join me tomorrow and ask a question, or just hang out and do the work while you hear me in your ear, I appreciate it. And if you know anybody else in the market, feel free to share that with them. Well, thank you so much. I will see you